Luffy, Zoro and Sanji are known as the Monster Trio by the One Piece fandom, reflecting their role as the three strongest fighters of the Straw Hat crew. People have, however, over the years started questioning if this term is actually true to the story, or if it is just something fans made up, and isn't actually present in the original Japanese manga. In this video, I will look at the original Japanese, and prove whether this term is actually true, but I will also break down what the Monster Trio actually implies, as well as the true meaning behind its possible new version, the Wings of the Pirate King. Without beating around the bush, the Monster Trio is canon, and is exactly what Luffy, Zoro and Sanji are called in Japanese. To my knowledge, the term is used 2 times in the manga, once by Nami during Thriller Bark, and once by Karibo at the beginning of Fishman Island. In both instances, Luffy, Zoro and Sanji are collectively called Kaibutsu Sannin Gumi. Translated directly, this means a group of 3 monster people. Kaibutsu meaning monster, Sannin meaning 3 people, and Gumi meaning group or team. This is also what Luffy, Zoro and Sanji are actually called by Japanese-speaking fans. If you, for example, type Kaibutsu Sannin Gumi into Google image search, you will unavoidably find pictures of these 3 characters grouped together. Even further, Japanese fans actually also literally use the English name, Monster Trio. So really, the term is just as canon as other translated terms in the story. If you do not think it is canon, then by the same logic, neither are terms like Pirate King or the 4 Emperors. Here is an interesting question, however. Has the term Monster Trio become outdated? I recently talked to a Japanese friend of mine, and he said that him and other Japanese fans of One Piece have started thinking that with Jinbei's inclusion to the crew, the time of there being a Monster Trio is over. This is in my opinion a fair question, since it has been years since the term was used in the story, and the last mention of it was before Jinbei joined. Jinbei also does have some things going for him, such as him currently having a higher bounty than Sanji. My personal answer to this question, however, is that the Monster Trio term is still relevant, even in 2024. This is something I think I can actually prove with the manga. For one, the term was never about which crewmates had the highest bounties. Robin actually had a higher bounty than Sanji all the way from her recruitment to the end of Dressrosa. In fact, she even had a higher bounty than Zoro until the end of NES Lobby. Yet, the Monster Trio in all this time never included Robin, and only referred to Luffy, Zoro and Sanji. The term has simply never been about notoriety, but always about strength. In this case, the only way Jinbei could break the term is if he was stronger than one or more member of the old Monster Trio. While everyone is entitled to think that Jinbei is this strong, the manga at least seems to lean towards him still being outside the top 3. Even after Jinbei's recruitment, the manga still has a lot of moments that depict the old dynamic between Luffy, Zoro and Sanji. This also goes beyond the actual chapters, and Oda also still depicts the trio in things like magazine covers. Granted, perhaps the better argument why the Monster Trio term is outdated isn't Jinbei, but actually Luffy. In the last few arcs of the story, Luffy has become significantly stronger than the rest of his crew, more than ever before. While Zoro and Sanji are doing their best to keep up, it is pretty clear that they're not on the level of their captain. Where the manga is at the moment, is it actually fair to call Luffy, Zoro and Sanji as the Monster Trio, when Luffy is so much more powerful than the other 2? This is in particular because the Wano arc also gave us the new term, the Wings of the Pirate King, perhaps indicating that Luffy is now beyond the likes of Zoro and Sanji. Personally, my answer is that the Monster Trio is still a relevant term, even despite Luffy's current strength. My reason is that Luffy seemingly always had a gap with Zoro and Sanji, even in the past. This applied when the term was first brought up in Thriller Bark, and arguably, the gap between Luffy and his crew had only grown wider when the term was used a second time during Fishman Island. At least to me, Monster Trio simply refers to Luffy, Zoro and Sanji being the 3 strongest members of the crew, and is not connected to how strong the trio is from one another. I would however like to touch a bit more on the new term, the wings of the Pirate King. There is actually a fan claim that this term only refers to Sanji as being both wings. The word Robin uses during Wano in Japanese is Ryoyoku, meaning both wings. Because she is only talking about Sanji in this scene, some have interpreted this as meaning that Zoro is not included in the term. This is however false. In Japanese, the term Ryoyoku inherently implies a pair, just like something like Yonko implies a group of 4. When Robin says the wings of the Pirate King when talking about Sanji, she cannot logically refer to just one person. Japanese often relies on context like this, so even though she is talking only about Sanji, the language means that she is referring to 2 people. In other words, to Sanji and Zoro. To drive this point home, let's pretend that Robin is actually talking about Luffy, and let's swap out the term Wings of the Pirate King for Yonko. In this case, Robin would say, Kareko so Yonko ni fusawashi otoko, meaning he's a man fit to be Yonko. It doesn't mean that Luffy is literally fit to be all of the 4 emperors, but simply that he's fit to be one of them. You also do not need to take just my word for this. If we use the same trick we used with the monster trio, and simply Google image search the wings of the Pirate King in Japanese, meaning Kaisoku no Ryoyoku, you will find images of both Zoro and Sanji. This is even more concrete than with the monster trio, where the 18th issue of the official One Piece magazine is even titled Wings, or Ryoyoku, and it depicts both Zoro and Sanji. So, to summarize what I covered in this video so far, Monster Trio is a 100% canon term used for Luffy, Zoro and Sanji, and is present in both the original Japanese manga and is used by the Japanese fandom. This also applies to the Wings of the Pirate King, which despite some fan claims, is a reference to both Zoro and Sanji, not just Sanji. Both are seemingly terms that simply refer to the strongest members of the Straw Hat crew. The manga and Oda are also still clearly heavily invested in this monster trio dynamic between Luffy, Zoro and Sanji, and I personally do not think Jinbei's inclusion, or pretty much anything other than one of the trio dying, could change that. Granted, even this might not actually be the case, since both Luffy and Zoro possibly literally died during the Wano arc, yet they and the monster trio dynamic are still going strong. Actually, little known fact, but Sanji also died during one point in the story. This was back during Fishman Island, where Sanji went through such huge blood loss that he actually saw the afterlife. Knowing Sanji, his afterlife was naturally full of beautiful women. On closer inspection though, those aren't women. They're like buttons for this video. You should click them before Sanji comes back to his senses. If you enjoyed me going through the Japanese version of the manga, you should click here to watch a similar video I just made about the Golden Lion Shiki, and how the original Japanese actually confirms him having held a title only given to the greatest pirates in the story. As always, thanks a lot for watching this video to the end.